There's a moment you may never forget. You sat across from someone. Maybe your brother, your partner, a parent. You heard the words, saw the eyes, smelled the familiar scent of someone you've known for years. And yet, for the first time, you felt something was missing. Not something physical, something vital. It wasn't malice. It wasn't deception. It was absence. You looked into their eyes and saw nothing. An echo, a performance, a face rehearsed so well. Even they believed it. But you didn't. Your intuition whispered, "There's no one home." This video isn't about paranoia. It's about perception. It's about validating what you felt but never dared to name. The strange emptiness behind certain smiles. The disconnection that lingers after some conversations. The energy you lose by simply being near them. And if you felt this, you're not alone. Throughout history, from Gnostic mystics to Buddhist monks to modern simulation theorists, there's a recurring warning. Not every being that walks beside you is awake. Not every face you love has a soul behind it. Some are reflections, some are performances, and some are shells. But before you judge, pause. Because some are not soulless. Some are just buried. Our job is not to condemn. It's to discern. And that discernment begins now. Sign 1. Emotion without depth. You felt it in conversations that should have mattered. You were sharing something raw. Something personal. Your grief. Your dreams. Your struggle. And the person across from you responded, appropriately. They nodded. They smiled. Maybe they even shed a tear. But behind the gestures, you sensed a void. There was no soul in their sorrow. No presence in their empathy. Just mimicry. Soulless beings often mirror the emotions expected of them. They laugh when others do. They cry on cue. They speak like someone who cares. But it all feels like theater. This isn't narcissism. It isn't just detachment. It's spiritual absence. Real emotion connects. It vibrates. It shifts something in you. When someone feels with you, not just for you, the room transforms. You feel seen, held, understood. But with the soulless, it's different. You feel lonelier after their comfort than you did before. Take Sarah, for instance, a client I once worked with. She had a mother who was always there. School events, birthdays, the hospital bed when Sarah broke her arm. But Sarah said something chilling. I've never felt loved by her. Only watched. Her mother did all the right things. But her presence felt empty, mechanical, like someone performing love, not embodying it. When emotion lacks depth, it often reveals itself over time. It flickers. It starts strong, fades fast. A friend who weeps at your misfortune but moves on within minutes. A partner who apologizes sincerely but repeats the same hurtful pattern the next day. What's missing isn't intention, it's depth. This is where you begin to notice. They don't sit in their feelings. They react but never reflect. Their joy feels rehearsed. Their grief is brief. Their empathy is like an echo in an empty room. The danger isn't in their performance. It's in the illusion it creates. You believe you've connected, but you haven't. Reflection prompt. Think of a time when someone responded to your vulnerability with all the right emotional cues. But you left feeling unseen. What did your intuition pick up that your mind tried to ignore? Sign 2. Scripted responses. They always say the right thing, but you never feel it. You tell them something painful. They say, "It's all going to be okay." You express a deep fear. They respond with a quote from church. Or a motivational meme. You confess you're lost. They smile and say, "Everything happens for a reason." They're not comforting you. They're reciting a script. Soulless beings communicate through pre-packaged language. Their words don't come from within. They're recycled, borrowed, replayed. They respond like a podcast soundbite, a sermon, or a social media post, not like a conscious presence who's truly listening. It's not that they're being manipulative. It's that there's no self inside forming the response. It's all playback, no reflection. I remember a man named Jerome who shared a story in one of my workshops. His brother had lost their father, and Jerome tried to connect with him deeply. But every time Jerome opened up, his brother responded with phrases that sounded like they came from a Hallmark card. He's in a better place. God never gives you more than you can handle. Focus on the positive. After a while, Jerome stopped opening up, not because his brother said the wrong things, but because it all felt automated, like there was no one actually there. The deeper implication is this: when someone cannot respond from their own emotional center, you're not having a conversation, you're interacting with a social program. This kind of scripting often comes from people who were raised to conform, who never questioned authority, who consume media passively and believe repetition equals truth. They don't wonder if their words are real. They just say what's expected. You may even begin to notice a delay in conversation, like they're buffering. They're scanning for the right response, the one that fits the social norm, not the one that comes from truth. And here's the haunting part: the more deeply you speak, the more blank they become. Real presence exposes the absence. Reflection prompt: when was the last time someone responded to your truth with something that sounded memorized? How did it make you feel, seen or dismissed? Did you ever notice a moment where you reached out and got nothing back but a quote? Sign 3: the absence of curiosity. Soulless beings don't ask questions, not real ones. They may ask about your job, your weekend, what you had for lunch, but they'll never ask, what keeps you up at night? Or, what do you truly want from life? And they certainly never ask it of themselves. This sign is subtle but devastating. It's the absence of curiosity. When a soul is awake, it seeks, it wonders, it wrestles with meaning. It asks, who am I? And, what am I not seeing? The questions burn from the inside out, pulling us toward insight, growth, truth. But the soulless, they float, they don't explore, they repeat. Their minds are closed loops, not windows. I once met a man, let's call him Paul, at a retreat. He was charming, warm, and said all the right spiritual things. But as I got to know him, I noticed something strange. He never asked a single genuine question. Not about the teachings, not about others, not even about himself. Every discussion was a lecture, a monologue. Every answer was definitive, unchallenged. And when someone shared something profound, Paul would smile, nod, and move on, like a tourist snapping a photo and walking away. No pause. No wonder, no integration. It hit me. He wasn't searching. He was collecting. Curiosity isn't just intellectual, it's sacred. It says, I don't know, and I want to. The absence of it reveals something chilling. Not just arrogance, but emptiness, a void where inquiry should live. This kind of person might be highly educated, even brilliant, but brilliance without curiosity is just performance. Without wonder, there is no soul behind the seeking. Reflection prompt: who in your life rarely, if ever, asks you real questions, not to keep a conversation going, but to know you more deeply? Have you noticed whether they ask those questions of themselves? Sign 4: the lack of an inner witness. Have you ever spoken with someone who reacts immediately to everything? Praise, criticism, conflict, but never seems to pause, reflect, or wonder why they feel what they feel? That pause is sacred. That gap between trigger and response, that's where the soul lives. And when it's missing, you're dealing with someone who might lack an inner witness. The inner witness is the part of us that observes our thoughts and feelings without judgment. It's what allows us to self-reflect, apologize sincerely, change direction, or simply sit in silence and feel. It's what makes us truly conscious. When a being lacks this observer, all that's left is reaction, instinct, reflex. A woman named Marla once told me about her father. He never lost his temper, but he never really engaged either. When praised, he'd nod. When criticized, he'd shut down. He never once asked, why do I feel this way? Or, what's happening inside me? One day, she asked him directly, do you ever think about what you think? His answer, what's the point of that? It shook her, not because it was cruel, but because it was empty. Soulless beings don't lack emotion. They lack the mechanism to observe their emotion from within. Without that, there's no introspection, no transformation, just pattern. This doesn't always look robotic. In fact, it can seem very normal. They might joke, cry, smile, but when something deep happens, conflict, loss, truth, they default, they shut down, they justify, or worse, they deny it happened. The witness is what makes someone human, not because they always get it right, but because they can see themselves doing it wrong. Reflection prompt: think of someone you know who never reflects on their own behavior. How do they respond to being challenged? Can they hold space for their own contradictions, or do they reject them outright? Sign 5. Loop behavior. They say the same thing every time. They tell the same story, react the same way, argue the same points, year after year. Their emotional world loops in place. This is loop behavior, and it's a major sign of soullessness. A conscious being changes, even when they resist, even when they struggle. Some part of them is moving, evolving, stretching toward growth. But with the soulless, it's like watching someone stuck on repeat. Not because they're stubborn, but because there's no internal mechanism for self-renewal. Think of someone in your life who always tells the same victim story. Nobody listens to me, life's not fair, it's always someone else's fault. You've heard it 100 times. Not just the words, but the emotional tone, the facial expressions, the drama, every detail, exactly the same. You could record it and play it back years later, and it would still match. It's not just frustrating, it's draining. This isn't about being caught in a habit. We all get stuck sometimes. It's about someone who never integrates new insight. They don't learn from experience. They don't incorporate feedback. They never say, "That's something I need to work on." Because at the core, there is no sense of authorship over their story. Souls revise, rewrite, wrestle, but the soulless, they replay. I once had a coworker, Liam, who was warm and funny and dependable, but every conversation with him was déjà vu. He talked about how his boss didn't respect him, how his wife didn't appreciate him, how his life was stuck. Always the same wording, the same blame, the same punchlines. Over the years, I started noticing something terrifying. Not only had his life not changed, he hadn't changed. It's like his script was frozen in time. At first, you think they're venting, but after a while, you realize they're trapped in a loop, and they don't even know it. And here's the real danger: when you try to shift, to grow, to break your own cycles, they resist, not because they hate you, but because your evolution threatens their inertia. Reflection prompt: who do you know that seems to be living the same year over and over again? What happens when you try to bring something new, an idea, a possibility, into their world? Sign 6. Energy drainers. Some people leave you feeling heavier, not because they hurt you, but because they absorbed something from you and gave nothing in return. This is the signature of the energy drainer. We often think of energy vampires as dramatic, toxic people who stir up chaos. But the truth is more subtle, and more unsettling. Some energy drainers are quiet, even pleasant, but when you spend time with them, something in you dims. Your thoughts feel foggier, your emotions feel flattened, you don't feel seen, you feel siphoned. These are often the people who speak in circles. They talk endlessly but say nothing. Or they demand emotional attention without offering real connection. They pull your focus, your empathy, your time, but without any soulful exchange. You pour into them, but nothing pours back. I remember visiting an old friend, Dana, who I hadn't seen in years. She was kind, well-meaning, and seemed genuinely happy to reconnect. But after just a few hours, I felt depleted, as if I had run an emotional marathon. She hadn't been cruel or negative. In fact, she smiled the entire time, but she didn't truly listen, didn't ask anything meaningful, and seemed to be subtly absorbing all the attention and energy in the room. When I got home, I sat in silence and realized I had been broadcasting the whole time. But there had been no signal coming back. Soulless beings often lack an inner energetic engine. There's no spark, no light, no radiance, so they feed off others, not maliciously, but passively. Just by existing near you, they begin to absorb the energy you naturally radiate. Over time, These interactions erode your vitality. You begin to dread their calls. Avoid their presence, not because they're unkind, but because they leave you feeling erased. Reflection prompt: who do you feel consistently drained around, even when the interaction seems harmless? Have you ever noticed yourself shrinking or dimming to survive their presence? Sign 7, no shadow, no depth. They always seem okay, too okay. They're polished, pleasant, always smiling. They say the right things. They never complain, they never confess, they never break. And that's the problem, because behind the mask of perfection, there's nothing real, no conflict, no contradiction, no admission of pain or shadow. Soulless beings often appear emotionally stable, not because they've done the work, but because there's nothing underneath to disturb the surface. They don't wrestle with guilt. They don't explore their anger. They don't face regret. And if you try to go deeper with them, they gently deflect, or suddenly disappear. There's no texture, no edge, no story of transformation. One man shared that his wife of 12 years had never once shared a moment of self-doubt. She was kind, responsible, and consistent, but when he opened up about his shame, his wounds, his childhood trauma, she offered comfort but never resonance. "It's like she supports me," he said, "but never meets me. It's because she couldn't." To have soul is to carry shadow. As Jung said, there is no coming to consciousness without pain. The soul grows through contrast, by holding light and dark in the same breath, by admitting mistakes, by facing truth. So when someone shows you only the bright side, never the struggle, never the scar, it's not wholeness, it's performance. And when you look closely, you begin to notice, their positivity is brittle, their peace is thin, their smile never softens into vulnerability. It only shines, relentlessly, like a mask you can't take off. Reflection prompt: who in your life always seems emotionally perfect, but never reveals depth? Contradiction or pain. What do you feel when you're with them? Trust or distance? Sign 8, absence of awe. There is a kind of silence that doesn't mean ignorance. It means reverence. It's the stillness that falls over you when you witness something truly sacred, a sunset that breaks you open, a piece of music that cracks your soul, a moment of synchronicity that feels like divine timing. Souled beings respond to these moments with awe. They pause, they feel, they don't rush to explain or categorize, they let the mystery move through them. But the soulless, they scroll past it, they nod politely, they say, "That's nice," and look at their phone. The absence of awe is one of the clearest signs you're not in the presence of a true inner self. Because where there is soul, there is wonder, and where there is wonder, there is humility. I remember sitting beside a man at a retreat in the mountains. The group was watching the sunrise in complete silence. One by one, you could feel people being moved, some in tears, some in smiles, all in presence. But this man, he sighed, looked at his watch, and asked when breakfast would be served. He wasn't bored, he was empty. Soulless beings don't marvel, they consume. They pass through beauty as if it's wallpaper. They attend spiritual gatherings but never let them penetrate. They listen to sacred stories like they're trivia. There's no echo inside them, no resonance. You can feel it when you share something profound, something that moved you, that changed you. And they blink, they smile, they nod, but there's no pulse, no expansion, no meeting. Because awe isn't just about what's out there, it's about what awakens in here. Reflection prompt: think of a time when you were deeply moved by art, nature, spirit, and someone next to you felt nothing. Did it make you feel more alone? Did it make you question your own depth? Or theirs? Sign 9, unreachable through soul-level communication. There's a kind of connection that can't be faked. You know it when you feel it. When you speak from your soul and someone truly hears you, not just your words, but your essence. But with some people, no matter how deeply you open, your words fall flat. You talk about your dream, your grief, your awakening. They smile politely, they nod, then they change the subject. Or worse, they dismiss it entirely. Soulless beings can't receive soul. It doesn't register. It doesn't echo. It doesn't land. It's like trying to play a sacred song through a broken speaker. The music exists, but there's no sound coming out on the other side. I once shared a mystical experience with someone I deeply trusted, a profound, life-altering moment of stillness and clarity. They blinked, chuckled nervously, and said, "You always think too much." That moment taught me everything. Not because they were cruel, but because there was no one home to receive it. No mirror to reflect it. No presence to hold it. Soulless beings might talk all day about relationships, careers, gossip, opinions, but bring them into the depth of being, and they vanish, they shut down, or they revert to cliché. You need to relax. Maybe you're just tired. What they're really saying is, "I can't meet you there." This sign is perhaps the most painful, because it's the moment your soul realizes it is alone in the conversation. And there's nothing you can do to change it. Reflection prompt. Have you ever shared something sacred, deeply personal or spiritual, and received nothing but blankness or deflection in return? How did that moment change your relationship to that person? Conclusion. What to do with this knowledge? Now that you've seen the signs, really seen him, what do you do? How do you live with the knowing that not everyone you love, work with, or share space with is fully present? First, you do not hate. You do not condemn. You observe. This awareness is not meant to divide. It's meant to protect. Some people are not evil, they're empty. And the most dangerous reaction is arrogance, the belief that you are more evolved, more worthy, more awake. That reaction makes you the very thing you fear. Discernment without ego is the task. Can you know what you know, without needing to declare it? Can you see what's behind the eyes of others, and still walk in love, not denial, but love? The presence of soulless beings in your life isn't just a test of perception. It's a call to embody your own soul more fiercely. This isn't about pointing fingers. It's about reclaiming your energy, about not wasting your light on those who cannot reflect it, about building bonds only where there is resonance. Remember, the goal is not to wake the soulless. It's to stay awake yourself. In a world of mimicry, your authenticity is sacred. In a world of repetition, your depth is rare. In a world of numbness, your wonder is revolutionary. So don't become cynical. Become sovereign. Speak when you are moved to speak. Be silent when you are not met. Protect your sacred knowing. Let go of those who cannot meet you in truth, not with anger, but with grace. Because what matters most now isn't that everyone is conscious. It's that you are, and you remain. Final reflection prompt. How will you honor the knowing that has awakened in you? Where will you invest your light now that you know not every eye can see you?